Another day, another opportunity to spit some truth when it comes to comic book sales, talking about Superman Son of Kal-El this time. We all know that the book was canceled, announced at New York Comic-Con, and the spin is going on, folks, specifically from Tom Taylor and the comic industry shill websites that would like you and I not to believe our lying eyes that Superman Son of Kal-El wasn't actually canceled for low sales. They're actually just getting rid of it because it's getting a better title now, and it's a miniseries because we all know that miniseries are much more important than ongoing comic books, right? Especially in this industry. Unfortunately for Tom Taylor, DC Comics, and the shill media websites, we all see through their lies and we know what's actually going on. And I'm going to finally give some context on how you can blow holes in Tom Taylor's story about how the sales on Superman Son of Kal-El weren't actually all that bad because it was an Amazon #1 bestseller. Let's get into all the details. Superman writer Tom Taylor debunks claims John Kent solo comic was canceled from CBR.com. This is what they had to say. No, DC Superman Son of Kal-El was not canceled due to low sales. Sky News Australia recently put out an article with the headline, Going Woke and Broke. DC cancels gay Superman solo run after abysmal sales. Son of Kal-El writer Tom Taylor, himself a native of Australia, was quick to shut down such claims and set the record straight. Before we get into Tom Taylor's futile attempt to set the record straight and let you know that sales really weren't all that bad, you and I both know that DC Comics are in a tough spot right now. We've got the Warner Brothers Discovery merger that's happening. We have layoffs happening likely as we speak, and there's a spotlight on DC Comics as far as their sales. If Superman Son of Kal-El sales were good, if they were even average, even a little bit above or below what they thought a Superman flagship title should be selling, can you imagine Jim Lee, Marie Javins, and DC Comics canceling the book right now when they need data supporting that their sales are good more now than ever? Just think about that. Common sense dictates that if Superman Son of Kal-El was selling like gangbusters, as Tom Taylor recently claimed in a tweet that he later deleted, that they would actually cancel the series. It's absolute hogwash that DC Comics, Jim Lee, Marie Javins would even attempt that at the position that they are in right now. It's all bullshit. It's all lies, and it's easily refutable. This is what Tom Taylor had to say. Not canceled. John Kent's solo title is being renamed Adventures of Superman John Kent. So John has an iconic Superman series to himself and to include his name in the title. As for sales, let's check what the #1 selling comic is on Amazon right now. Oh, try reporting facts. At the time of Taylor's tweet, the best-selling comic book on Amazon was Superman Son of Kal-El, #16, the series' most recent issue. Since we're all actual comic book readers and fans here, I know you know this, but let's set the record straight. Nobody goes and buys physical copies of floppy issues from Amazon. Do you know anyone in your comic book reading community, in your fandom, that actually has a pull list for single issue floppy comic books through Amazon.com? The physical comic books that people buy from Amazon are trades. And I already went through last week how Tom Taylor was full of shit when he said Superman Son of Kal-El trades were selling like gangbusters on Amazon. Didn't even make the top 100 on the graphic novels list, the superheroes list, or the LGBT comic book list. The sales on Superman Son of Kal-El trades on Amazon just don't exist. It's not a bestseller on that site, at least not this month. But what Tom Taylor said is true. At the time that he took that screen cap, yes, Superman Son of Kal-El #16 was the #1 best-selling comic book on Amazon. Now let's put some actual perspective into it and see through the lies. Amazon's bestseller status is probably the easiest thing in the world to achieve. The rankings are actually updated hourly. DC Comics are released on Tuesday, while Marvel Comics are released on Wednesday, meaning Superman Son of Kal-El only competes with other DC books for 24 hours every single month for bestseller status. And these are most likely digital downloads through Comixology, the comic book app owned by Amazon. When I personally checked Amazon.com's bestseller list, Superman Son of Kal-El was already down to #43, behind 12 other new floppy comics that came out this week from DC and Marvel. What Tom Taylor has really provided is proof that for 1 hour in a single month, Superman Son of Kal-El was a best-selling comic book. Not exactly a great achievement. And then when you look at what the sales are, just a few days after the initial release, it's already behind all those Marvel titles. It's already behind a couple of DC titles that came out this week. And it's definitely behind a bunch of graphic novels that have been out for years now. Let's not forget the digital downloads, which likely are the reason that Superman Son of Kal-El made #1 for an hour in a day. Those sales are minuscule in comparison to the book channel and comic shop sales. What we can see in this chart, Digital sales did increase in 2020 and 2021 during the pandemic, but they still made up less than 9% of total comic book sales in North America in 2021. Also, those increases that happened after 7 years of flat digital sales in 2020 and 2021 happened because of the pandemic. That's no longer a factor. What are the chances digital downloads actually increase their market share in 2022? And what Tom Taylor has shown us is actually meaningful. Not all that good if we're being honest, but what are the chances they decrease in 2022? Pretty damn good if you ask me. Why, may you ask? Because Amazon incorporated Comixology into their own architecture and broke the functionality of their comic book reading app. I know tons of people who quit reading digital comics in 2022 just because of what's happened with Comixology itself, which accounts for most of the sales that Tom Taylor is lauding right here. How many people do you know that use Comixology regularly in 2020 and 2021 and in 2022 got rid of their account? I would have gotten rid of mine if I had a comic shop nearby. Unfortunately, the closest comic shop to me is on another island, and I have to use it just to be able to read new comic books where I am. If I were not in this position, I would absolutely not be using Comixology because it's so broken at this point. Did you use Comixology? If you did, I want to hear from you. Are you continuing to use Comixology at this point? I wouldn't be surprised if the revenue generated by digital downloads in 2020 gets cut in half because Comixology is essentially broke right now, and that's the main mechanism Marvel, DC, and the rest of the comic book industry use to sell digital comic books. Having an Amazon bestseller for an hour or two in a month doesn't mean shit, especially considering how much digital sales actually account for. Less than 9% of the entire market, and that includes single issues and graphic novels in that format. Considering graphic novels outsell single issues by 3-to-1 outright in physical space, it's safe to assume they dominate single issue comic sales in digital downloads as well. If that doesn't spell it out for you and allow you to see through Tom Taylor's bullshit and lies, I don't know what else I can do for you. Those are the facts when it comes to digital comics. Those are the facts when it comes to Amazon bestseller list. Is it nice to get a bestseller badge? Is it nice to be able to take a screen cap and say, my comic book was the #1 comic book? Sure, I'm not taking anything away from that. If you're an Amazon best-selling comic book writer or a best-selling author or something like that, I think that is an achievement. But for a Superman comic, it's not really all that big a deal, especially when you consider that it's not competing with Marvel Comics for 24 hours. That digital downloads make up a minuscule amount of comic books actually sold and read in North America. Those are the facts as they are. And we do know when you compare sales of Superman Son of Kal-El for an entire 30-day period in comic shops, which represent a much larger percentage of actual sales than digital downloads, Superman Son of Kal-El can't break the top 50. Hasn't been able to do that for months now. As recent as August, it was ranked number 82, which ain't bad for Supergirl or Jimmy Olsen, but it's almost unprecedentedly bad for the Superman flagship comic book title. Superman has been a perennial top 25, top 30 seller for years upon years now. Even when Bendis was writing Superman and it absolutely sucked and was driving people away, it was for the most part a top 30 seller pretty much during his entire run. That tells you just how unappealing Tom Taylor's Superman Son of Kal-El comic book is. That's why the sales tanked. That's why they canceled the book. That's why they're relaunching it as a miniseries. It's basically a pity comic book at this point. DC Comics are the hot girl. Tom Taylor is the nerd that tried really hard, and they're giving him some pity stuff. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people are going to say, Wes, you just don't like it because he's gay or bisexual in the comic book. That is not true. I hated this comic book series from issue number 1. I hated it more at issue number 2. And once we found out what they were going to do with the character, I said, for a bad series, this is probably bad news. I've seen what Tom Taylor does when he gets in these types of stories. I was absolutely right. I was vindicated. Superman Son of Kal-El hasn't been an action-based superhero comic book for months now. It's been an LGBT coming-of-age comic book story about Jay Nakamura and his boyfriend, John Kent. That's why people aren't reading it, because it's garbage. It's not good, and it doesn't fit the DC Comics brand. It's not what Superman fans wanted. Do I think Superman Son of Kal-El was destined to fail when they created it? It was always going to be difficult. Having a Superman flagship title not led by Clark Kent, made more difficult by putting Tom Taylor on an in-continuity series. For the most part, he botches these left and right, and then certainly made even more difficult when they decided to label him the gay Superman, and that's all he's been for a year now. And for some reason, Tom Taylor keeps arguing with people whether or not the sales are good. I've already thrown holes in Tom Taylor's stories about the Superman Son of Kal-El sales actually being good. You need to check this out. There's history behind this. This isn't the first time this has happened. This isn't the first time it's been talked about. You need to watch this right now. If you can't see it, there's also a link in the video description.